Thank you, Dwayne. Congratulations on your award.
Thank you.
This time I'd like to call on David Zackrias. Would you please report?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning.
Joanne, again, I want to acknowledge Joanne. She's been the catalyst for our Ottawa Police GLVP Liaison Committee. She actually started that committee. She sat in that committee for 25 years, and our last meeting was last month, and please give her a round of applause for all our police. It's hard to match the great speakers here, and there's one more speaker who happens to be one of my favorite. I have a bias towards Mira. Again, this is a great event to be part of, and I'm very humbled to actually present on behalf of the Ottawa Police Service the current state of trends within the city of Ottawa relating to hate crimes. Again, like the read in my bio, I am an immigrant, and I came here when I was 15 years old. And I want to first and foremost acknowledge we are in an unceded Algonquin territory, and I'm very fortunate being a guest here. For the hospitality that's given to me and my family. Thank God our Indigenous people did not build the wall. In my presentation today, I'm going to touch more about from a policing perspective in relation to hate crimes. So our job is to investigate hate crimes. And so I'm going to touch on the criminal code, the definitions of criminal code, and the criminal offenses that are applicable to hate crime. And also I'll move on to talk about some of the Ottawa Police Service efforts in addressing hate crime, and also how we work with the community. Great partners like NCCN. Please give them a hand. Again, when I do my presentations, I always start off with our mission, vision, and values for the organization. As you can see, the Ottawa Police Service, this is our new mission, vision, and values. Our vision is a trusted partner in community safety. And our mission is to protect the safety and security of our communities. So I want to emphasize the part where it says communities. Again, the question needs to be asked to this audience, who is the police? Well, the police is the community, and the community is the police. So the people in the community are literally the police. So when I leave my shift after a long day, I take my uniform off. I'm just like anybody else sitting over there. So I just want to emphasize that. Hate crime definition. According to the Ontario Police Standards, hate crime is a criminal offense committed against a person or property which is motivated by hate, bias, or prejudice based on the prohibited grounds protected under the Ontario Human Rights Code. So the prohibited grounds are listed up on your TV screens. As you can see, it has to do with race, national or ethnic origin, language, color, religion, sex, age, mental or physical disability, sexual orientation, gender identification and expression, Joanne, or any other similar factor. So this is a definition according to the Ontario Policing Standards. Now the question is, why do we have hate crime laws? It's very simple. Well, when you look at the criminal code offenses, you usually have an offender, you have a victim, you need one or the other. But in this piece, you need the impact is broader. It's not just one victim or particular institution, but it touches broader. It touches an entire community. It impacts a community. It sends fear, anxiety. So the reason why we have hate crime laws, as per the Ontario Policing Standards, the impact of such crimes is so far-reaching, extending beyond the physical and emotional trauma to the victim, to encompass other members of the groups and broader community. Such crimes can heighten the isolation and vulnerability of the victim's group and cause stress for all members of the community. If unchecked, crimes can result in an escalation of social tension between different groups and can destroy communities, thereby furthering the aims and objectives of those in our society who promote hatred and intolerance. As you can see what's going on in the United States, protests taking place, the unrest, that's all stemming from hate-related incidents. Hate crimes impact the large community. It can break the community, it can fracture. If we leave it unchecked, it can destroy us. It can destroy our civilization, our humanity, everything that we stand for. So that's why we need to take this seriously. So the most common types of offenses when we look at hate crimes is assault, threats, usually strangers going up to strangers and making threats. Mischief is very common. Graffitis to religious institutions that we've seen in recent weeks. And harassment, strangers going up to strangers, like I said. It's mostly non-criminal. Now, often when I hear these type of complaints, harassment complaints, people tend to argue on the other side. Oh, we have free speech in our country. Folks, we must be clear. We must send a strong message to the community out there. Yes, we do have free speech. However, people also have the freedom to live safely and freely. Free speech doesn't trump somebody's safety. So I'm going to get in terms of how Ottawa Police captures hate-related incidents. How do we capture that in our database? So we have something called the Canadian Centre for Justice Statistics. It's a code, CCJS code, that we use. So hate crimes are tracked based on the Canadian Centre for Justice Statistics within our general occurrence reports. So when people call it in, we track it. We have a specific code for hate crimes. The threshold for the definition of hate crime can include graffiti of hateful nature in a public place, or someone shouting a racial comment from a passing car that we've seen quite a few last year during our federal elections in the city of Ottawa. Or someone leaving hateful phone messages and incidents of vandalism to religious buildings. Something new this year that we saw was, this year there was a damage done to a Virgin Mary statue at a church. So hate crimes impacts everybody. It's not one specific group. It impacts humanity, all religions. But certain religions are targeted more than the other religions. So for 2015, the Ottawa Police Service, there were approximately, actually I'm going to take it back. I just received this new stats just this morning at 8:28, so I'm going to give you the latest numbers. So for 2014, we've had 94 reported incidents in the city of Ottawa. Now, I apologize, I don't have the breakdown of what these 94 incidents are, but these are hate-related incidents that were reported in 2014. And in 2015, we had 105 hate-related incidents reported to the Ottawa Police Service. And in 2006, between January till October 31st, we've had 64 incidents reported. That being said, the month of November, we've had quite a few incidents that you've read in the paper. I would say approximately 10 incidents in November that have been reported that has come to my knowledge. So if you add that 10 to 64, you're looking at somewhere around 74, approximately 74, up to date. So we are on track in terms of how we're progressing. But I can tell you, between the spike that happened in 2015 was a direct result of the elections, the federal elections. Because of the elections, there were a number of incidents that were brought to our attention. And once the elections was done, we saw sort of a decline. But now, what's happening down in the US, we're seeing a spike. So what I'm trying to say here is, what happens there impacts here. So we need to be aware of that. We can't ignore the obvious. We need to be prepared to address those issues, what's happening globally. So in 2014, I mentioned there were 94 incidents. So out of that 94 incidents, there were 95% of those incidents were mainly graffitis. And in 2015, 90 incidents were graffitis. 90% were graffitis. And up to date, this year, from January to October, 67% of the incidents are graffitis again. So for 2016, I got a breakdown. So we have 64 incidents reported till October. That's approximately 0.02% of all calls for service. So I just want to put it in context. The Ottawa Police Service responds to approximately 350 calls for service per year. So when you compare the hate incidents or reports, it comes down to, so far this year, it's about 0.02%. So it might seem minuscule, like, oh, it's not a big deal. But folks, trust me, like I said, it's not the intent, it's the impact we need to look at. How that hate crime affects the larger community. So the breakdown, out of those 64 reported incidents, we have about 43% of them were mischief, graffitis to religious institutions or organizations. Harassing events were 12 cases. Again, 3 of them out of that 64 were mischief to religious institutions. So the phone and the internet hate messages, we had 3 cases this year so far. We had about 2 cases relating to assault and mischief itself, other mischief, we had one case. So that's in a nutshell, a snapshot of what it looked like this year so far. But our year is not done yet. Again, what's happening in states will have an impact on those numbers. Just want to bring this to your attention. It should be noted that the statistical majority of hate crimes in Ottawa are generated due to graffiti. being performed on public buildings, private buildings and vehicles, as well as insert objects such as fire hydrants, electrical boxes, and garbage cans. A large quantity of these graffiti call contain one of the combination of the following items being painted, written, or engraved. Like Reverend Bailey said, these are cowards. They go out there, they do these things covertly. They don't do it out in public. Again, these are the types of incidents that we're faced with. As you saw from the last couple of slides, the majority of these age-related incidents are graffitis to buildings. And the graffitis, the most common graffitis are the swastikas. There was a mention of that. Swastikas are most common. We saw that last week in the city of Ottawa. It appeared in quite a number of buildings. And derogatory term, language, and vandalism as well. Just to put it in context, very few hate crime type calls are the result of 2 or more persons, very few. It's usually individuals, okay, very few are 2 or more. Actually engaging in an argument, it's very rare you see them engaging in an argument or verbal confrontation. Most hate crime type calls are a result of symbolism or words being left on an insert surface. Although hurtful are not, these might not appear to be violent in nature, but this sort of graffiti can serve and desensitize communities and people's rights and make them feel vulnerable. So the most common victims that we see in the city of Ottawa, again, the Jewish community is targeted the most. We keep seeing these graffitis over and over. And the Muslim community, especially women in the Muslim community, or others who wear headdress. So there's a lot of ignorance out there. For example, you might have seen cases where people wearing turban getting attacked and being taken for being Muslim. So again, people that are wearing headdress, and mostly women in the Muslim community, are targeted. Black males, and again the GLBT community as well. These are the 4 main groups that are targeted in the city of Ottawa. So I'm going to touch on the criminal code that applies to hate crimes. There's 4 specific sections that apply within the criminal code to hate crimes. One of them being advocate genocide. Bernie had touched on that. Public incitement of hatred, willful promotion of hatred, mischief of religious property. So these offenses, in order for police to lay this charge, we need to speak to the Crown and get their consent. Similar to the Anti-Terrorism Act, to lay a Terrorism Act charge, you have to get the Crown's consent. Same concept. But then again, there's all those other criminal code offenses that do apply, like for example, assault, threats. If there's an element of hate in those offenses, the sentencing principle comes in play, section 718.2. So during that sentencing phase, this is where the Crown has to make the case that these specific elements had a role, direct correlation to hate. So let's move on to reporting on hate crime. Underreporting is a huge problem in the city of Ottawa. Like Stats Canada, according to Stats Canada, as Amira alluded to in her news interviews, 2/3 of hate crimes go unreported. That's problematic for the police because we don't know the full landscape when people are not reporting these incidents to us. And again, there could be various reasons why they're not reporting. Maybe they don't trust the police. Maybe the way they were treated before by the police. But we need to know this, why, the reasons. Again, one of the things that I've been privy to, or I've heard over and over from the community members, is that our policy relating to hate crime has to do with when the public reports an hate crime, we have to, by policy, send a police car to the scene to investigate it. Maybe the community does not want to see a police car parked in front of their home. These concerns keep popping up. But again, this is an opportunity here today and moving forward for us to look at our policy. Is there a better way we can enable people to report these incidents so we can capture all that stats? Community Police Action Committee is an avenue, a committee that we meet every month. It's comprised of community members and the police. This is a platform where the community can come forward and report hate crimes through this committee. And another platform you have is the GLBT Liaison Committee, who Joanne had served 25 years in that committee. That's a good avenue. If members of the LGBTQ community don't feel comfortable reporting to the police, they can report it through this committee. And again, if you want to be anonymous, the public can report it through Crime Stoppers. Make the right call. This is a campaign that we launch quite often. People need to call the police when there's a hate crime in their incident. We need to know what's going on. If we don't know, we're not going to be able to respond effectively. If we're not going to be respond effectively, sensitively, that's going to impact on our legitimacy as a police service. So this is where it's important. The community needs to come forward and report these incidents, regardless of how minor these incidents are. I want to use an example. Last year, during the federal elections, Dr. Aisha Shirazi, who's a member of COMPAC, came up to COMPAC committee and shared some of the sentiments being felt in the Muslim community about how women are being harassed while they're walking on the street by strangers, random strangers, and that was a problem. That sent a lot of fear in the Muslim community. So when I went back and I started asking questions within the organization and started pulling up stats, I couldn't figure out that there were no reports made about these incidents. But yet there was a lot of fear being sent out in the community. So one of the campaigns that we launched, one of the approaches that we took at that time was we put out a message to the community out there saying, we do not tolerate these type of behaviors, and it's important that the community reports these incidents. I can tell you folks, that message that was sent out from my office, it generated a huge media interest. There were a lot of interviews, and it sort of sent a message out in the community, that the broader community, that this is what's going on, and it raised a lot of awareness, and it had a huge impact. And it also sent a message within those communities that are impacted, the police care for us, they care for our safety. And the support that they got, not just from the police, also from the broader community, it built such a strong solidarity. It was a success story. I'm sharing that with you because I got permission from Aisha to share that. So that's one of the ways we addressed that last year. This is the last slide. Again, like I said, safety and security is a shared responsibility. Police alone cannot address this issue. we need the community's support. The community needs to come on board. They need to collaborate with us, work in partnership with us, and they need to be on board because we can investigate it. If there's charges to be laid, we can lay those charges. But ultimately, it comes down to prevention and intervention. We need to prevent it even before we have to go take that step of investigating it. So this is where the community needs to come on board, where you can be part of raising awareness campaigns. And it starts off at home, with your kids, with families, having these conversations. I find people tend to avoid these types of conversations. It makes them uncomfortable. But the only way moving forward, the way we can address this is head on. We need to talk about these issues. We need to check our implicit biases that we have as human beings. We all have implicit biases. We need to self-reflect what we say, what we do, the language we use. As Reverend Bailey put it, we need to be cognizant how that impacts other people. And again, we need to get our education system also on board, the schools, where they need to teach our kids, young kids, hate has no place in our society. And again, this is one of the things I want to just emphasize, free speech. Every time there's a hate harassment incident, first thing I hear is, oh, this is a free country, it's my right to say what I want. No, you know what? If you are insulting people and threatening people and being verbally assaulted, that's not free speech, folks. That is wrong. People have the right to live safely, freely. Okay? Free speech does not trump that right. Last but not least, that's it for my presentation. However, I want to say that the Ottawa Police Service is very committed to addressing these issues. Our chief is very committed to addressing hate crimes in our city. And again, but we need your help. We need to work together. On December 8th, we have a human rights learning forum that's organized by the Ottawa Police Service. And I would like to invite everybody in the audience to attend this event. It's a one-day learning forum where we're going to talk about the theory, the science and theory behind human biases, and how you can recognize your biases and how you manage your implicit biases in how you treat people. And thank you very much for your patience. Appreciate it.